And welcome to channel KT4, broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube. You can join in by sending in questions during the show. Just press the comments button on the screen. Don't forget to click the like or share buttons. If you're watching on YouTube, please click to subscribe to channel KT4. It gives me great pleasure to welcome the Vicar of St Mary's Church, Cuddington, Theresa Ricketts, onto the show. Welcome, Theresa. You've come on the show on what is a very special day for St Mary's. Why is today so special?
So today is the 21st of July, and on the 21st of July, 1895, the very first services were held at St Mary's, Cuddington. So it's our 125th anniversary year, and today is the actual date of the first services that were held there.
No. Really, yeah. Today is the actual day of the 125th anniversary. I just feel so blessed that you've been able to come onto the show on such a really special day.
I know, we're really fortunate. I mean, in some ways, it's not been the year that we would have anticipated. We had planned to do a big summer fete a couple of weeks ago to celebrate with the whole community. And of course, that wasn't possible. But we're doing our best. And there's something about having to change your plans and having to think really carefully about what it means, I suppose, for the church to have been here for 125 years. And it's lived through so many things. So perhaps that gives us a sense of perspective on this special day.
I'm sure it does. I've got a little picture I'm going to put up, which is from your web page. Yes. Very trendy too, I might add. And so it gives you an opportunity to tell me a little bit about it. Here it is.
Yeah, so a shout out to Kim Spickett, who helps with our website. And this is, so David Rymel, who many of you will know as a local historian, has put together a sort of a walk through St Mary's through the decades, and that is available on the website. So we are still hoping, it depends how the situation changes, but we're still hoping to have some kind of an exhibition in church to show the decades of St Mary's kind of around the walls, almost like a timeline around the walls of the church. And what we very much hoped was that people would be able to visit and to add their photographs of various events where they'd been involved in the life of St Mary's, because it's such a community building and so many people have been in the building either for weddings, baptisms, and also for other events. So we hope that people would add their pictures, but we'll obviously have to see whether it's possible to do it site, which shows the some of the information and people can join in.
That's marvelous. I mean, the two things here. The first one is the Kim, and I've got Kim on the show next week.
Next week, that's right.
Yeah, she's going to come and tell me all about the Hogsmill River and everything else like that. And I like the idea of people coming in and bringing pictures into the church and doing everything else like that. I mean, it is a strange time, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But I've got to ask you this question, Theresa. How did you become a vicar? Because I believe you had a career as a civil servant. I'm interested in what kind of civil servant you were, and later a teacher before ordination. Do tell.
Yeah, so when I first came out of university after a sort of a foray into freight forwarding, then I joined the civil service. I actually worked in the Ministry of Agriculture, would you believe? But I wasn't at all involved in agriculture. I was involved in, well, again, ironically, the enlargement of the European Union and also world trade. And then I moved to the government office in Guildford for a period of time as the assistant to the regional director there. And then after that, I moved into teaching and spent 5 years as a history teacher. So my first degree was in history. And that was, and it's interesting. I mean, how did I become a vicar is it's a really complicated question. I shan't tell you the entire story, but I think that some of those different roles and jobs that I've done are part of the training ground, really. I sort of think that there was a calling that sort of emerged in its first sense when I was at university, and I was actually in a Franciscan friary was my college at university, and the friars there helped me to sort of understand a bit more about God, I suppose, and relate to God. And I went to church and I got confirmed at that time, and then it all became a bit sort of more in the background for a while. But I was always searching for something, I think. And as I searched, I talked to more and more people, and this sort of sense of a vocation into ministry sort of emerged probably during my my 20s and 30s. So yeah.
Right. Oh, it's great. And it's all to the benefit of Cuddington that you did that, which is marvelous.
Well,
Now, my pleasure. Now, well, we know from our conversation earlier of the 125th anniversary that actually the church was built in 1895. But could you give us a little bit of history about it? And whilst you're chatting, I'll try and keep up with you with a couple of pictures.
Yeah. So the building was finished in 1895, and like we said, the first services on the 21st of July, and then it was consecrated on the 20th of November in 1895. And this is a picture, an early picture, probably from about the 1910s or 20s, I think, of the interior. Now, the building was initially sort of shorter than it currently is, and this is a picture of that time. And then I think we've got a picture of the exterior of it at that time as well, which is a sort of sepia. Oh no, you haven't got that one. That's fine. So this is when they decided to extend the west end. So for those of you who've actually been in, then it kind of added more arches to the nave, which is the middle part of the church, and brought the west wall backwards. And so this is a picture of when it was about to begin. The west wall came backwards. But of course, on the left of that picture, there's a picture of the old parish hall, which remained in use. So it's 1959 that the building was extended, and then it remained, the parish hall also remained in use. And then the next big change was in 1995, which was when the actual new parish centre was built. So that's the sepia image of the old church, and then that's it, and that's when the parish centre was added. So the old church hall was demolished, and the parish centre now is actually adjoined to the church building. So we have an adjoining door, and it's got upstairs rooms and downstairs rooms. So really quite a good facility, and that was finished in 1995.
It's actually, I've got to say, it's quite amazing, because I've been to the church a few times, and been to the meeting rooms upstairs.
Yeah.
So I've used those facilities, and we're going to talk about this a little later. But also, it's the same time. This is the Cuddington Residents Association meetings that I attend, and the choir's always rehearsing.
That's so Thursday night.
Yeah, so I just get there a little earlier, so I can have a little sneak listen to the choir.
Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah, I've just admitted now that I'm doing that. But anyway, look, we've got to talk about this, because as we chatted earlier, that church is very much a community.
It is.
And of course, COVID-19 has had a massive impact on all aspects of life at St. Mary's. And I'm interested to know how you and your congregation have adapted to these changes and challenges through this time.
Yeah, I mean, it has been a really difficult time, because church is all about the people, and it's all about gathering. And so when you're not able to gather, then you take a huge amount out of what we traditionally understand church to be about. So this is just a picture in normal time about congregation, and as you can probably imagine, we just can't stand that close together apart from anything else. So it was the 15th of March that was the last service that we held at St. Mary's, and then we were told, and it was really bad timing, because we had the 22nd of March was Mothering Sunday, and we would have had a wonderful parade service with all the uniformed organisations coming, but that wasn't possible. And then it was just the Monday after that, the 23rd, that we were told that the church had to actually close. And we weren't even allowed anybody to enter the building for private prayer, which again, it's the community side, but it's also, there is something about that building which really connects with people. So, and particularly at difficult times in life, I think a lot of people want to find the building and find solace there. So anyway, but we had to deal with it, and my starting point was to give members of the congregation the opportunity to connect with worship each week. So people have done some things at home. These are some of they're adding the sort of cross to the rainbow image, things that people have been doing at home. I've sent out, initially I started on paper really with services and sermons, but I've become a bit of not a whiz at technology, I'm not going to lie, but I've started to do bits of technology. So I started to record my sermons and publish them on YouTube so that people could hear them, because sometimes it's much easier to hear the sermon than to have to read it. And then we also started services on Zoom. So we've had a bit of that. And then smaller groups have been getting together, Google Meets and Zoom and things like that they've been using. So yeah, lots of different stuff.
Hang on, Theresa, there's a lot going on here. So you've got a YouTube channel.
Well, but yes, I personally have. I mean, I just use it to publish sermons.
Yeah, but there we go. We now have a vicar with a YouTube channel. I mean, how good is that? I've actually said on a number of these programs when I've been meeting lots of really interesting people like you and lots of others. And I've been talking about, actually, for me, I think that this social platform, this media platform that we're now using, you and I are talking to this platform, has actually come of age.
Yeah.
I actually gave, I did a show the other week, and I was talking to a singer-songwriter in Australia. And we were broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube across the world. I mean, absolutely incredible.
It is. It's extraordinary.
It is indeed. Now, you mentioned Zoom. I think loads of people. I've got to tell you a little story, if I may. Right, I did got Zoom, and I do some lectures for the Art Society, and I was asked if I could do a lecture for an Art Society group. And I won't name which particular group it was. And it's on Zoom. So I'm now presenting my lecture on Zoom. And all these people arrived, ladies and gentlemen of tender years, and they all arrived. And it was quite funny because they all came into the room, but they weren't aware of kind of the etiquette of being in a Zoom room, and they're all chatting away across each other. And, is Ethel there? And all that sort of stuff. And then they all sit down on their sofa, with a glass of wine, and they're all saying, "Right, come on then, Graham." It was honestly, then it was the first time a lot of them had ever been on Zoom.
Yes,
but it was really good fun to do it. So here's a Zoom picture from church.
Yep. So that's a house group meeting. So
just explain a little bit more about house group for me, please.
So we've just got some members of the church congregation are involved in house groups. So it's just a smaller group of people who will meet together, and we often do sort of things like Bible studies or talk about prayer or something like that. But I think one of the things during lockdown is that some of the house groups have met a bit more often, just because they could gather together, and it's just trying to understand one another and the challenges that we're all facing. So I think, again, it's like you say about things coming of age, isn't it? It's like, I think we've come to value how we can connect with people so much, because it's been difficult to connect with people, and and also things can change so much in a week. I mean, in one sense nothing changes because we couldn't go out, but in another sense, how you're feeling about things can really change. And so having a group of people that can understand that is such an important thing.
Yeah, now I agree entirely with what you're saying, Theresa. And here's a picture of how the church looks today.
Oh gosh, yes, yeah.
That's so different, isn't it?
Yeah. This is our challenge at the moment. So we were allowed to open the church building for private prayer in the middle of June, and but of course it has to have hygiene practices in place and social distancing. So we've tried to make sure that nobody can sort of be within 2 meters of each other to try to maintain that distance. And there's also obviously sanitizers and things available. So that was for private prayer. And then we have a couple of weeks ago, we had our very first service in church post lockdown. But it was, again, with all of this distancing in place, we've probably got a capacity of about 35 people in the church building, whereas I mean on a normal occasion we can probably get about 250 in there. So 35 is a bit of a challenge. So we've just started for the 8 o'clock service for now, because it's 8 o'clock in the morning, then fewer people get up, and so we're doing that in person, and we can distance for that, and we're moving forward and hoping to make the 9:30 service also kind of, we're doing sort of mixed mode, so in person and also on Zoom at the same time, which again Yeah, I
So you're
know.
doing both.
Yeah.
So if you actually got a kind of like in front of you, you've got a camera
Yeah.
so that people at home can watch, and
That,
those that may be still self-isolating and things like that, they can still do that. But you've
yeah.
also got a congregation of sorts
Yes,
in the
we've got
church. Wow.
yeah, the iPad sits on front of in front of the altar, and then the congregation can sit. And so, and I mean, our challenges are silly things like, again, I sort of missed this module at theological college, the sort of how to deal with a global pandemic, but
Yes.
but apparently, it's the sound systems that end up being quite tricky, because if you're trying to enable the people in the church building to hear, as well as the people on Zoom to hear, and not have feedback and not have echoes and all of that. So we're doing a bit of trial and error, but I mean, people are really, really forgiving and aware that we're doing the best we can. But of course, so much of church is about meeting people, and so it feels so difficult not to be able to come together and share that sort of fellowship.
No, I completely agree with what you're saying about, it's all about being together, and because one can connect and talk and discuss all the strange things that are going on at the moment.
Yeah.
But I think how you're embracing technology and mixing it with a live congregation, I think that's well done you. I think that's tremendous. Now we've also got in normal times. Can we just talk about normal things for?
We can talk about
you want to do that? Yeah. There's many. Sorry.
Yeah. I can tell you some things we normally do. So, I mean, one of the things that we have is a toddler group, which has been huge in the within the church community. So every Friday morning we have toddlers, and that's been quite, really popular. And it just means that quite a lot of young families are connected with. I mean, it's held in the church hall, and it's all the people that help there are members of the congregation. So that's fabulous. We have a church choir, which you mentioned. So.
Choir.
This is a historical picture, one of the earliest pictures we have of the church choir, and I think you've got a picture of a more modern one, haven't you? That's it. So this is our last year, our summer concert. They do have robes, I assure you. It's just that it was probably one of the hottest days of the year last year, so we decided to go cool. And they were singing Joan Man jazz amongst other things, but they did a summer concert, the choir, and that was them rehearsing for it last year. So yeah, music's a big part of church. And
for me being a musician, then yes is the answer to that, very much so. And I just thought I'd let you know that as part of my my education to become a conductor, I went and spent some time with the Royal Schools of Church Music.
Yes.
And I had a wonderful time there, learning all about the art of composition for choral composition. And it was just a wonderful place and a wonderful experience that I had. And as soon as I saw these pictures, it just came flooding back to me. What a great time. We'll move on to another picture here. I'm going to try and control you a little bit, Theresa, so that you got the right pictures. Okay, so this is now the hall, isn't it?
Yes, so that's, I think that's from a wedding that was held in the church. So again, in normal times, we have weddings, we have baptisms as well. And I'm delighted to say that we are having a couple of weddings this year, albeit in very different circumstances. Take that number and sort of take away 90% of them, and you'll probably have the number that can now come to a wedding. But yeah, that's normal time. And I think have you got some pictures of the Flower Festival as well? So
I've got some. This one.
Yeah. So last year, we community things are hugely important to us at St Mary's, because obviously we're part of the community, and and we hope that the building feels like part of the community for everybody. So last year we had a wonderful flower festival where different groups within the community did the floral displays, and then for over a weekend, then people came in to view the displays, and we had some refreshments and things like that, and other people did some lovely music too, so that the building had a really lovely atmosphere for the festival. We were blessed with glorious weather, but these are the children, the toddler group, Wellington boots outside with flowers in. So yeah, it was a really lovely community event, and I think so many people came into the church building who probably haven't even been in before, so that was a real joy for us. I've
got to say that's just an absolutely wonderful picture And sorry, it's taken me a while to take it off screen, but I think it was worth staying there anyway, because it's a lovely, lovely, and so clever. Whoever designed that idea to have that, it looks as if they're all queuing up to go into church.
Exactly. Yeah, they do sometimes, but usually they just rush in. Children love the church building and just run around it and everything, which is wonderful.
Yeah, I'm sure. For me, this is poignant and is very significant, and I think it's wonderful that you did this. There we are.
Silent Soldier, yeah. So I mean, another thing that church is all about big events. The things that matter to us as a community, and Remembrance is a huge of huge importance to us. So we always obviously have an annual Remembrance service, and all the uniformed organisations come, and they're really supportive, and people wear their medals, etc. So yeah, we've and somebody donated, I suppose, or a silent soldier. So that's there. And as you can see, we've sort of our gardening team have done a fantastic job of growing some poppies and things around it. So yeah, it's and the cubs and beavers have come, and you can probably just see on the right there some pebbles. They did a sort of act of remembrance themselves around the silent soldier. So it's one of those things that just sort of keeps playing its part, I suppose, which is so important in sort of community life. And of course, it's such a reminder, isn't it, having remembrances, that there are big events in life all the time, and COVID-19 is our current one, but there are always things that kind of hold us as a community.
Yeah, I particularly like that the photograph was taken at the time when the poppies were in bloom.
Yeah,
and there are so many bits of significance in that, and of course from the toddlers with the pebbles and everything. I think it's just a wonderful picture. And of course, another big time of year is Easter, and I do like this picture.
Yeah, so that was this year. I mean, we probably for the first time in 125 years there wasn't a service in church for Easter Sunday. So the congregation lit candles at home, and I've actually got the Paschal candle, the Easter candle from the church. It's in my home at the moment, and will be taken back into the church hopefully once we can get a sort of a decent congregation into church. A good number of people, but yeah, we lit candles too as something that was something that we could all join in together, even though we're not in the same place. So trying to get that sense of community when you can't gather together.
No, I agree. Completely agree with you. Now, I was thinking that at this particular stage in the program, we ought to have a little intermission.
Yes.
But we'd have an intermission of slightly something different, because as I'm sure you're now aware that I'm a musician, and live music is an integral part of my life. And I believe that live music is equally as important within church. Particularly with my history of the Royal School of Church Music. And by the way, I'm just going to go off piece a second and ask a question. Are they allowing the organ to play?
Yes, now.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, that's good, because I'm going to tell you a little story again. And this one is about the discussions at the moment about wind instruments.
Yes.
There's huge discussions about this, and I think it's really important because lots of children get together to play musical instruments, and at the moment the government aren't allowing it. And there was one very clever chap who on YouTube did a demonstration, and what he's talking about is people misinterpreting what comes out of a trumpet. Mm-hmm. What goes into the trumpet comes from here, and of course that spit, and it goes into it. But what comes out the other end is sound. It's the physics of sound. It's not air. And people think it's air that's coming out, and air is dangerous because that can spread the virus. But there's no air. So he demonstrated it very simply. He got a little ping pong ball, put it on the table, and got a straw, and just blew the straw, and the ping pong ball went straight across the room. He put the ball back there, and he got a trumpet, and he blew as loud as he could down the trumpet. And guess what? The ball didn't move a fraction. So my thing is, if anybody from the government is listening, right, get your science right.
Yeah.
Right. Having said that, I've got a little clip here because I had the pleasure of going to St. Mary's for the Christmas concert by the Kingston and Malden Scout and Guide Band. So I've just got a little extract, and they're playing a very well-known march called, would you believe, and they selected it, Death and Glory.
Oh, glory.
Wow, absolutely marvelous.
Yeah.
Really uplifting stuff, don't you think?
It sounds so gorgeous in the church as well, doesn't it? It's just
The,
like
the acoustics are perfect.
yeah, it's
Absolutely perfect. You know, I know we've talked on this a little bit, but it is strange not having.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
No.
Oh.
Oh, now I can.
Now you can.
Now I can.
Okay, good. Sorry about that, folks. Technology at its best. That's what I'd say. Now, music in church, as we know, is really, really important. And again, because of guidelines, choirs can't sing and congregations can't sing, which has got to be really sad. But when do you think, I know it's a $1 million question, isn't it, Theresa? But when do you think the congregation and the choir are going to be able to sing in church again?
Yeah, unfortunately, it is just the $1 million question, and we are absolutely obliged to follow the government guidelines. So in the end, we have to wait until they make their decision. And I do trust that they are trying to act in the interest of everybody's safety. So we're trying to be as creative as we can. So like I was saying about having Zoom and the people in the church, we're trying to, because on our Zoom services we use some music. St Martin in the Fields Church has been putting together hymns each week, and then giving us all access to those hymns. We can all download them, and as long as you've got a streaming license, you can use them without any other worry. So those we play. And so if people are at home, then obviously they can sing along, which is lovely. But obviously, if you're in the church building, then at the moment it's not possible to do it. So I don't know. I mean, we can, like I said, we can hear the organ, so that's not. At least there's some music in that way. But it's a really tough time, and it is so much part of what draws us into worship is the music. So it is really challenging not to have that.
Can you even get the organ to play just a verse or two of a hymn?
Yeah, we'd be allowed to do that, but and I think, I mean, in some churches, I think people are sort of doing a bit of the humming, sort of, along if they want to. But you have to be careful not to disobey the rules. So it's sort of, but you can have hymns played by the organ, and I mean the sound of the organ is wonderful, and it's really lovely to hear it playing.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, weddings and christenings play a big part of life in the church, as of course do funerals.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of, I think some of your members of the congregation have sent in some absolutely glorious pictures. So if you could tell me, here's the first one coming up.
Yeah, so this is the baptism of John Vickers on the 5th of June, 1949. And so this is probably I think it's the earliest picture we've got so far of a christening in the church. And he's, I think he's held by his godmother, who was Kathleen Freeman, standing with her husband, Ron Freeman. And they ran, apparently, the Drapers, which was J.E. Freeman in Central Road. And I believe that's where W.H. Smith currently is. And apparently their daughter, Barbara, is also there. And then to the right, John's parents, Alice and Harold Vickers, and their daughter, Diana, who I think that's how we actually got hold of the picture, was through Diana. And to the far right, Mrs. Vickers' brother, Charles Appleton. So Mr. Freeman and Mr. Appleton were the godfathers. This is all information because David Drymil is always gathering pictures. So this is all information from David. So I hope I've done him justice with that one.
Well, thank you, David, because these are great historical pictures of the day, aren't they? And
they are
amazing, and they stand the test of time. Here's another one. Now we're going from a christening, we're going to go to a wedding.
To a wedding, yeah. So
wow, look at this.
Again, the earliest wedding picture we think we've got at the moment, and that's from the 20th of May, 1950. Anthony Kinnelly and Jean Robbins, and it's been sent by their son Clive. So yeah, I think again, it's like I say, we're really blessed that we are going to have a couple of weddings in church this year, which certainly wasn't at one stage. It looked almost impossible, but it's one of those things about a church that it holds people's memories, and it holds important, really significant events in people's lives are held within a church. And so it's lovely to have the sort of sense of history and the sense that we are joining with generations from the past. And so you get that sense of past, present and future sort of coming together, which is so important.
That's true. Well, Theresa, I don't know where the time has gone, but before you say farewell,
Yeah.
what are the plans for the future? I mean, you've got all this COVID-19, and we've got to hopefully get this behind us, and you've still got a plan for the future of your wonderful church.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose, I mean, we were already, I mean, we're always sort of planning, aren't we? I suppose it's the way that we are as human beings. And we had already, from the success of our toddler group, we were already looking at more work that we could do with children, young people. So we'd actually planned to start Messy Church, which is for the sort of primary school age children. We planned to start that, and in fact, it was going to be the first one was going to be on the 1st of April. But I'm sure those plans will come back once we can use the church building in a more sort of, with more people gathered. I'm sure things like Messy Church will come back onto our radar. And again, all of the events we have planned around the anniversary were to do with the community, really. So I'm sure there'll be more community events. I mean, this year, our hope is still, I said that the 21st of July was the first services held in the church, and then the church was actually consecrated on the 20th of November. And we've invited Bishop Joe, who's the Bishop of Dorking, to come and preside and preach at our main service on the Feast of Christ the King, which I think is about the 19th of November this year. So we're still hoping that will be able to happen as well, and we'll be able to have some kind of a celebration, but we just have to wait and see. That's the way this year is, isn't it?
Yes, certainly is, isn't it? Look, Theresa, a massive thank you for joining me in our virtual studio here at Channel KT4. It's been so interesting talking with you about St Mary's Church, its history, and your plans for its future. Let's hope we can hear the sound of hymns being played and sung once more in your wonderful church in the not too distant future. Theresa, a big thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you.
My pleasure. This is Graham Jones, broadcasting live on KT4. Join me again next Tuesday at 12:30 when I'll be joined by one of our local volunteers who help look after the Hogsmill River. That is none other than Kim Spickett. Until then, stay safe and stay alert.